Hey, who do you think you're talking to?
Marketing explained using everyday language. From LA to Europe, I've done creative consulting and lecturing. My name is Andrea Luminati, and this is what I've learned so far.
Today we're talking about targets, and whether you want to call it target audience, target market, or just your audience, doesn't really matter, because the point is that you need to get to know them very, very well. It happens to me quite often that I'll get a project in which the target audience is described in very vague or generic terms, sometimes as vague as males ages 20 to 50, and that doesn't really give me very much to work with. Actually, it makes it very difficult for me to both create messages that will resonate with these people and to actually even choose the right media to get my messages delivered to these people. So getting to know your audience is obviously paramount in order to be able to create marketing campaigns that actually work. And there are 4 questions you need to ask about your audience. Who are they? Where are they? How are they personality-wise? And how are they when it comes to you or your product? There are 4 parameters that we use to define our target audiences. The first one is called demographics and answers the question, who are they? Their age, their marital status, their gender, their income, their education level, etc. Next is geographics, which answers the question, where are they? And here we're talking about density of population, whether it's a city or a town, and also what kind of problems do they have in that specific area. Psychographics answers the question of how they are personality-wise. And here we're looking at their lifestyle, their personality, their values and attitudes towards their family and religion, government, and also what their fears and desires are. And lastly, we have behavioral variables, which is not so much about them, but rather about how they are in regards to you or what you've got to offer. And here we're looking at brand loyalty, we're looking at frequency of usage, and where they are in the purchasing cycle. Purchasing cycle, I've seen it described in a number of ways, but in essence is where the customer is in regards to being completely unaware of your product, to becoming aware, to becoming interested and perhaps doing research, and to actually purchasing it and whatever comes afterwards. So these 4 sets of parameters that I just talked about, demographics, geographics, psychographics, and behavioral variables, are extremely important because they help us put together the pieces of the puzzle and see and get a very clear idea of who we're talking about. This makes it that much easier for people like me to create messages that actually resonate with the target audience and also to select the right media to get the messages delivered. I couldn't possibly get out of a lecture about target without talking about clusters. And clusters is a very different approach to target audiences that groups different types of people according to a common characteristic that is somehow interesting to you as the advertiser. Probably the best way to explain the cluster approach is through an example. So let's take a look at aspirin. Aspirin opens up a number of potential customers, but let's just take a look at 4 groups. Senior citizens, children, young women, and men. Now, if I were to develop 4 different campaigns, of course I would have 4 times the cost. So by going cluster, what I'm going to be doing here is taking the one characteristic that they all share, which is headaches, and develop a campaign that only addresses that particular issue without talking to any of them directly. There are pros and cons to the cluster approach. Yes, on one side you are saving money on the creative aspect because you're not developing 4 messages, but rather just one that hopefully will work for everybody. But also these messages are not going to be as effective or as engaging because they're more generic and less specific. On the media front, you're also not saving anything because in order to get your message seen by the target audiences, you're going to have to buy the types of media that they actually listen, read, or watch. So, pros and cons, it's up to you to decide. My particular personal and professional preference is always going to be to create very specific messages for very specific audiences, because I strongly believe that just getting the message delivered is not enough. The message needs to be engaging and it needs to do the work. My name is Andrea Luminati. I've been doing marketing since 1984, and this is what I've learned so far.